How are you? You slept well?
Like a baby.
Like a baby, yeah.
Too little.
So, okay, and as you can see here that if you want to ask questions, you can send them in, and I'll try to. My guy here screens them and sends me the relevant ones. But if I may ask you, just all of you, you are now the world's best brands. You represent them. But why do you deserve it? If I start with you, Ari.
I guess, we've always had an unashamed focus on simplicity and single-mindedness. So I think that's probably what is being reflected, and I think an important part is described.
So maybe you go on the Finnish end.
I think because of courage. When we started the rebranding project a couple of years ago, we decided that we don't want to be normal. Typically when you do, for example, a visual identity for a clean tech brand, you choose from either light green or light blue. And just as a simple example, we didn't choose those, we chose really kind of let's say, provocative colors. And that's also what we do in everything we do actually, and what we say. We try to say how things are, for example, regarding climate change and those kind of issues that we really need to push change and so forth. So courage is the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that because we have chosen to be different like other TSOs, we have made a clear decision in our management that we could be that boring monopoly, just doing the things civil servant or so, but we have decided to be very customer-centric. We listen to our customers. We want to do good for the whole society, for Finland. We are very open. We give information. We give open data. We are cost efficient. And we try to be, you said that there needs to be emotional side of a brand too. We like to be also a little bit fun and happy, like you saw yesterday.
But I have to ask you this question before you ask the rest of you. Why in the earth should a transmission company spend money on branding?
Why? There are many reasons. First, what comes to my mind right now is crisis management, for example. Very clear sample from last summer. We had fire on our one substation, and as a result, 2 of the nuclear plants dropped off from a grid, and we had a very severe situation in Finland. We almost had to rationalize our power, electricity, but luckily the neighboring countries saved us, so everything went well. But what happened after this, we didn't hardly get any criticism. On the contrary, the Minister of Energy sent us congratulations that we handled the situation well. So you need to have this brand that you are good and you are efficient, because if something happens, when you get support from a public and you get support from politicians. Our reason is that if you think about employer branding, you need to attract people who know what we are doing, the best workers, especially nowadays when transmission of electricity is more and more digital, so we need a lot of ICT professionals, and it's very hard to attract those people, but we have managed so far. So you need good branding. You need to have a good brand that this is a good company.
All right.
Oh, 2 reasons so far.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. And why are you the world's best green brand?
Why did we deserve it, you say, you asked.
Yes.
And I don't know, you decided that we are.
Yeah, but I have to ask you.
And again, we won. I'm really happy. Yeah. And I think that what is funny is that we are not the only one to be happy. Jonathan, myself, we had a lot of social media posts since yesterday evening, even so it was late in France. And it seems that our customers are as happy as we are. Oh. That we won that award of the best green brand. And I think that's why we want the best green brand, because we created ekWateur just for the customers and for a community, and to speak with what we are. We made it simple. We said, okay, that's the way we want to behave. That's what we would love to have. So let's deserve and let's deliver that. And we brought the customer with us, and they feel part of ekWateur. Some even get paid for some services they do. Some are drawing pictures that are put on our bills. So we bring them in as much as we can, and they feel that this is a duty to us, like it's a weight, so we have to be very transparent, because otherwise they find out and then it would destroy everything. We have to be simple, and yeah, we're much emotional, I would say. And most probably that's what you saw by giving us this award. And it's maybe easier on this market because most of our competition, incumbents in France like EDF or even NG that we saw yesterday, are so scared of saying things the way they have such difficulties to keep it simple in plain English, like was said yesterday, so that I think we've got some years ahead of us. And unfortunately for us, a conference like that is a risk. Because then you will all change if you are incumbents, and you will go back to us. But that's what we are, a community of customer employees, and that's what you felt, I think, analyzing the brand.
Good, thank you. And Emma, for the second year in a row.
Yes, and thank you very much.
Just to make sure, I didn't choose any of you. No. It was your customers and the panel, big panel.
To everyone. Yes, so in answer to why do we think we deserve it, I think a very clear sense of purpose, commitment and empowerment. So a clear sense of purpose from the board down, and commitment to deliver the new energy world and grow the new solutions businesses. And then, empowerment to say, to me and the whole marketing team, to do something quite different with the brand and with the creative campaigns and the videos that I showed yesterday, to the commercial heads of solar, e-mobility, connected home, etc., to shake things up the way things are done internally to work out how best to scale and grow those businesses. So yeah, kind of commitment, standout, empowerment, but overarching, very clear sense of purpose and direction of travel.
Good, thank you. Ari?
Yeah, I guess from our point of view, I think it's the single-mindedness of our brand. We've always been unashamedly focused on the customer and the customer experience, and I'm a believer that the brand is a product of three things, and it's your actual product, or in our case, the technology and customer experience. The way you speak to customers, so that's in terms of customer interactions, both service and marketing. And then the final one, probably the most important one actually, is the internal culture. And I think the internal culture of the organisations that form Powershop around the world are very much human, and I think it speaks to the emotional side of the brand pyramid that Fingrid put up, that we like to have fun, we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we are human. For example, our call centres aren't scripted, they are people who have normal conversations with customers who call. Those sorts of things, they sound simple, but actually make a huge difference when a customer engages with us and certainly contribute to a more human experience. And I think that's probably what gives our customers a favourable experience.
All right. So another question that might be a little bit harder, actually. Your customers have chosen you, and you score higher on the Abby score, so that's why the customers don't lie. They are the ultimate truth. But the panel might have been wrong in choosing you. So is there something that they missed that would have meant that they would not have chosen you? So maybe you'll go first. And let me go. Please keep your answers short. Just short sentences about how you kind of faked it. Sorry to be blunt.
There's nothing immediately that springs to mind, other than perhaps a brand purist probably doesn't like the approach we've taken to internationalisation, that we have allowed the instances of PowerShop around the different world a degree of flexibility. We've given, as I described yesterday, a sort of hub and spoke model rather than command and control, and I think it actually works really well. But I think a brand purist who tend to be perfectionists probably wouldn't agree with that approach.
Okay.
Being very, very honest, business readiness, as we describe it. So if we create demand and generate leads, then the ability to actually fulfill right the way through to the installation of, say, a new solar system as quickly as a customer wants. So some customers might want to think about it for a while, some might want them very quickly. So it's being able to deliver at the speed that customers desire.
Okay, thank you.
On our side, maybe it's just like we didn't engineer our brand, we didn't think about it, there was no reflection before that. Indeed, we just did what we wanted to do, and then we analyzed and put words on that to present to you. It was more a gut brand, and then it came out that it worked like that. But we didn't, like all the people I've seen yesterday and today, with a really strategic view of marketing, we didn't do it like that.
Good, thank you.
Well, our customers have no choice. They have to be our customers. So we are lucky in that sense, but that gives us even more reason to listen to them and cooperate them. And also is on one factor that if you think about Finland, it's good that we can supply secure energy and electricity, because then new customers may come to Finland, new businesses like Google came to Finland for one reason only, and it's because we really have a reliable electricity.
Yeah.
As a growth company that's growing 100% per year with all metrics, we are making a lot of mistakes all the time, which leads to customer dissatisfaction, which of course fluctuates as we also kind of correct those mistakes. So it depends on when you would ask the customer about how we are doing. That really affects on how the customer perceives us.
Okay. Are there questions from the audience before I take the app? You want to ask them something? Something you want to learn about your own brands? While you think about it, I want to ask you a question, because we thought about you said about the being internal thing. When I work for companies around the world, the problem is not the graphics, it's not the ad agency, it's working with the people. So to get the organization to understand that it's good for them to become brands. So within your organizations, and you can answer in any role you would like, is there understanding for what you're doing? Do they understand this branding thing? I'm a true believer, of course, but I'm posing the question that way.
I can start. I came to work Fingrid 11 years ago, and at the time, our engineers didn't really understand the need for communication or branding or even customer service, but it has changed tremendously. Right now, our experts, even when they go somewhere, they come to the communication room and want some training how to present matters, and they really have understood the value of it. And we are at the moment we are having a huge program for all our experts pertaining to the customer service and what is good customer service.
Okay.
I think it's super hard all the time to get people to understand, and we still have the benefit of having a small organization, and still it's a struggle, especially for people who come from have a sales background in some B2B industry. It's really hard to make them understand that a brand is built from all stimuli that the customer gets, and the strongest stimuli that we can get is the other person acting, doing something. So making them understand that whatever they do, how other people perceive them, how I'm now talking to you here, I'm building our brand all the time. And it's super hard to get people to understand. I think it's a constant struggle, even in a small organization.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I would follow that because, yeah, it's really interesting to hear you say that even with a relatively small, relatively young organisation. And of course, at E.ON, with currently 40,000 employees, soon more, it is a real challenge. And there are a lot of very established areas of the business. And I think, it's about making it fun, the point that was made a couple of times yesterday. And I love the green chair and part of the sort of challenger brand thinking, which we always try to tap into, because I think that's the opportunity to think in an agile way as a large established business. It's kind of symbols of re-evaluation. And I think that green chair is a great example of doing that internally. And obviously, there's also a strong reason for doing symbols of re-evaluation externally. The other thing that we try and do is to both to help our business understanding and then to help engage people across the business is to look at how everything links together. So if we do, like say that the big dip, the air source heat pumps video, the ad that I showed yesterday, that had a knock-on effect, not only on air source heat pumps, but on boiler sales, on systems of new solar systems, on smart meter installations, etc. So you really see how if you build that brand story, it can build benefit across the business.
All right.
In terms of organization, I'm convinced that cultures, it's strategy for breakfast. So you have to think about culture from the beginning and the engagement of all your employees. And what we've seen that you don't need to be a large organization to have IT guys and marketing guys splitting apart and even being one against the other. And the customer left in the middle completely forgotten. So it's something we are really convinced that we have to tackle. And so we implemented things which are at the beginning seems counterproductive. We oblige every employee, IT guys like marketing guys or whatever, to go 1 day per every 3 months in the customer service center and to talk to the customer. And it's very important because like that, first things they see what is their project used for. Because if you've been an IT guy and you've just implemented a change in the app, if you never see the customer, you don't see that it's been useful. And if the app doesn't work, and if you don't have a customer yelling at you, you don't realize that it's your fault. So, and the same for marketing. Yeah, okay, you like the color, but maybe they don't like the color. And this as well makes it easier to have everybody having the same understanding in the company and the same goals. So this is what we've done so far, and obviously it's a challenge to continue that with the growth, but it's more than a challenge, it's vital. When we grow, so we were 2-3 years ago, we are 30 plus 30 answering the phone now, and if we don't manage to keep on with that, and with that culture, then the company will not be able to reach the sky as much as we would like to.
Perfect. So, Ari?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pretend that everybody in our organisation understands brand, but paradoxically they are the brand. And I think we were given the luxury, I guess, of starting with a clean sheet of paper. And to Frederick's point earlier, that a brand isn't just a logo or anything else. It is a philosophy. So because we started with a clean sheet of paper and our business philosophy grew, and the people reflect the brand, I guess, in many ways our people are brand ambassadors, even though they don't really understand that. And I guess it is because we've got that consistency of business philosophy and the propositions that we deliver.
To pick up that point, I mean, you're honest about it, that not everybody understands the brand. But if you move over to you, Emma, you have 40,000 employees, and just how realistic is it for half of them to understand the brand? Or even 30%?
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough, and I mean, we tend to, again, there are other conversations about brand ambassadors. We tend to try and identify the people across the business who either naturally have a tendency to be brand ambassadors, or who are in an influential situation within their particular business unit. So we'll literally, it's almost like a segmentation, I suppose, across the different regional units and business units, and then identify how we can kind of make the biggest difference and sort of cascade through across the organisation in that way.
Okay. Maybe if I pose the question to the rest of you, I mean, Fingrid, for example, I mean, if you talk to an average Finnish engineer and and was thinking about his face, being a Finnish and an engineer. But anyway, so I mean, do they understand? Could they possibly understand what you're trying to do?
What we are trying to do you mean in branding?
Yeah, I mean, do they follow you?
I think they nowadays follow better. Of course, we have engineers who just think that it's all about just the technology, and we don't need to have a discussion with our shareholders. But we have a lot of engineers who understand the branding, and they are good at being spokesmen. And also, if we are very good at talking to the landowners and especially the environmental people. And I'm just really happy that we haven't had the same problems like what we heard yesterday from Iceland, ekWateur, that they have those demonstrations from the landowners and people in general. We haven't had anything like that happening even if we are building new power lines and substations like that. So we have a very open discussion with landowners and residential people. So.
I might come across as that I'm trying to ask hard questions. Actually, I am. But from my own experience, when you work with people in terms of branding in organizations like a transmission company, I work, for example, with Landsnet, and if you help people to understand that it's good for them, they really get on board, and it helps the organization. And that applies to a monopoly, and it applies to a company, of course, that's competing on open market.
But you need the leader. You need the leader to talk about a brand, and that is what we have. Our CEO Jukka Ruusunen talks in front of a whole personnel about the value of a brand, and because it gives us the license to operate. If we don't have a good brand, then authorities might come to and say that, hey, to deal with our business. But now we can operate better. License to operate, the brand gives us.
Do you want to?
Yes, and we have that from the top. I mean, Johannes Thijssen, our CEO, is very passionate about the brand as well as the rest of the board. But yeah, what I was going to add was that the importance of pride. So we've been talking earlier this morning about what an important task and goal and purpose we have as a sector together. So I think creating pride across the organisation makes a massive difference. And I think your kind of brand triangle and the rational and the emotional, I think there's a really great opportunity in bringing the emotional lens to life internally as well as externally. And to your point, as a sector, historically, we've tended to focus more on the rational, but I think there's that emotional opportunity with the internal audience to create pride.
I think actually because the industry focuses on doing the rational side really well, and they do it really well, and perfectly in some examples forget the emotional part. So.
I think the brand as well is an engagement, and it has to be accepted and integrated by the employees for them to be spokesmen. And you could have people saying no to that, like they would say no to piles in their landscapes, but internally. And I think this means that in some companies, brand is saying like, I am from the headquarters, and this is the brand, and take it as it is, and now you learn how it works. And I think this won't work, or it's very, very risky. And it's much better if they feel, okay, this is what we've done, and you can interact, and you can bring your small part. And even so, they're just telling their things, and then 100 or 90% of what the proposal are discarded. People feel more that it's their brand because they have the right to give their opinion. So the participation inside the company for the brand is as important as the implication of whatever other entity that we usually do to be sure that there will be acceptance.
Okay.
So that's very important.
Yeah, sure.
And I think your earlier point about involving engineers or technical people is a really important one, because often, although they tend to think, they're technically excellent and they tend to think in that way, I've had a lot of, significant experience in terms of occasions where by sitting down with, say, the CTO, and this is another British Gas Connected Home example actually, by sitting down with the CTO, you can actually get to what is the optimum kind of emotional statement or claim you can make for customers as to this is why you should come to us, why our product service is better, because actually they've got it in their head. It's just they don't naturally articulate it in an emotional way, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Is there a question from the audience? We'll continue then. I'll try to monitor if you stand up. Oh, Stephen, go ahead. Maybe you'll stand up and speak up.
Does somehow putting hardware in the customer's home help cement the connection? So there's a tangible thing that they can say, that's mine.
Good question.
I can answer as ekWateur. I'm sure it would, but it's very expensive. So we didn't do it yet. But because there is no way to monetize it, and so it's a huge investment. It would be most probably a better churn value on the long term. But this is a cash issue for a small company. Then we don't do it yet. But I'm sure it would.
I mean, hardware can get it. You can be a battery, solar panel.
Yeah, that's anything. Anything costs money. When a customer comes in, he won't pay more. I mean, we are anyhow on a very price-driven market. Electricity compared to electricity, it's the same service. So most of the people would first look at the prices. And so if I have to put on the top of that 20 euros, 50 euros, then they don't come. So then I have to pay that for each new customer. That brings acquisition costs really high. So it's we'd love to find a business model for that, but it's not clear yet.
As a company operating hardware, it's the same thing. It can be a risk and it can be a huge benefit. A risk in a way if you don't do it well, if you have problems. Of course, it's just one more touch point that builds your brand, either in a negative way, for example. But of course, it's a touch point, and if it works well, if it kind of brings joy or other positive feelings, of course, it's a huge benefit because it's a touch point that's constantly there that you interact with concretely every day. So I don't think it's necessarily a positive thing, but it can be, I mean, how well you do it. And this comes down to how you build a brand. It's not a separate function, but everything you do, meaning that it should be a thing that's led by the CEO or someone else in the executive board.
All right.
Sorry, I think being in a retail business, I don't think it necessarily adds value unless there's a tangible purpose and value of a piece of hardware. But I think to be constantly reminded or reminding your customers of who you are and what you exist. So in our case, simply having our icon on their mobile phone is something similar to having a tangible device in their property. So it's a positive reminder of a way to interact with us rather than necessarily a piece of hardware on the wall that never gets used.
All right. Did you want to add to this?
I was going to make a couple of similar points. First of all, the point about apps on mobile phones, and I was talking about touch points, yesterday too, and definitely it increases engagement and warmth to the brand. Yes, sort of hardware in the home, but I also echo the point that it's got to work really well, or it actually creates a negative effect. But thinking about that whole customer experience piece and the customer journey as a way of bringing the brand to life, as well as the communications and obviously the offerings. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We have a question from the audience. Oh, okay.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the question about if the engineering departments in your company, you say that they understand the importance of communication and branding, but are they also using it? And how are they using it?
So
do they develop things? Are they actually taking contact to the stakeholders? Are they using the same services as you have defined in the application and so on?
So it's almost that the last point you make helps me to explain it actually, which is that they don't naturally use the same terminology or the language, but if you sit down with them, either just individually or in customer labs, like bring customers in, either on a one-on-one basis or in small groups, then they start to trigger thoughts in their minds, the minds of the engineers or the technical people, that actually really help to get to the articulation of the kind of the more emotional or the marketing-y type messages rather than the techie type terminology. So I don't mean that they use it naturally, but that they've got the optimum, intellectual property in their head that you can then use interaction with the marketing team or with real life customers in the room to get them to that explanation.
As an anecdote, we have had severe technical problems with reliability in our network in Finland, with our charging network in Finland. And this has been concerned, just a small fraction of our devices, but it's a huge perception problem. It's a branding problem. But how do you kind of fix that? Of course, you can do the branding stuff of communicating and so forth. But then, of course, you try to fix it. So the engineers fix the problems. So they are basically doing brand work. But you don't tell them that, hey, by the way, we have this new brand project that you're going to be fixing these minor problems in our network so that the perception of our customer becomes better. It's not something you explicitly tell them, but of course they are being a huge part of that brand problem and solving it. So I don't know if they need to know that they're doing branding.
And,
I could give an example of how engineers can understand communications, and it's simple that we try to teach them how, not in plain English, but you need to speak plain English, you need to speak plain Finnish, and for example, if there were to be an engineer here today from Fingrid to talk about something like some technical matter, they come to us and they want their messages to be more simple, because they realize that if you talk more simply with the plain English, plain Finnish, it's better communications. And we have had tremendous success with the most introverted engineer who comes on a big stage with our customers. And previously he would just own hundreds of slides with all kinds of graphics, and then suddenly he only has 3 slides with pictures of flowers or stuff like that, and then he gives a presentation and succeeds, and after that he is so happy. He's so happy because he gets such a positive feedback, and they can take a risk. Engineer can talk plain Finnish or plain English if you just teach them and show them and let them a chance.
Very good. So I'm going to take a question from the app here. So just because we'll be wrapping up soon, so we'll keep the answers short. What are the emotions that you want to connect to your brands? I mean, we will start on the end there. Just, you have it. What is the emotion you want to connect to your brand?
It's hard to put in one word, but the feeling of being a part of a movement and actually really being serious about pushing towards a zero-emission society.
Okay.
I would say courage, and courage also to show a way to a clean energy system.
Okay.
And we say fun, transparent, and professional.
Fun, transparent, professional.
Enjoyment and the great experiences that energy brings to us.
Right.
I was going to say fun, but that's already taken. But I'd say cheeky.
Cheeky. Yeah, all right. And how does it work for an energy player? I mean, of course, I followed your brand for a while, and it is about fun, of course, like ekWateur here. How does it resonate with the energy consumer to do business with a fun brand?
I mean, my God, electricity's dull, isn't it? And it doesn't take much to introduce a bit of fun. And it actually, so for example, our product specials, we have regular specials that are just designed to be purely fun, just give people a smile.
Yeah, right.
And people do engage with that. Yeah. They do enjoy both the functional benefit of getting a special and a discounted product, but actually, as much as anything else, they enjoy having a smile, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. We take some risks, and they talk about it on social media and enjoy it.
Yeah, right.
Can I go back to Stephen's question? He asked about the hardware to homes. We obviously can't go to people's homes, but what we have done, our land, those towers, power towers, we have on visible parts of Finland, we have them designed differently, that they are not typical land towers. And that has given us a lot of recognition from a public. And also one power tower, we designed it specifically by the request of farmers, because they couldn't go around with those big machines around our towers. So we designed it that they can go under. And we actually even won a prize with that. So hardware can be branding even in TSO.
Okay, so the last, because I want to keep within the time limits, I have the last question, and it resembles the one I asked the green panel here earlier. And does it make money for you to be a good brand? And how do you know you're spending your money wisely on what you're doing in terms of branding? Ari, maybe I'll start with you, and we'll just go down here. Your last words, make them count.
We wouldn't exist without a brand, and I think the strength of our brand has definitely allowed us to grow in the 3 markets. So absolutely, we make money from the brand. I don't have any more confidence than half our marketing money is valuable and the other half's not. But but I think we're absolutely brand's valuable to us.
Yeah. All right.
It's all about measurement. I was going to reiterate this point earlier. You touched on it up on the screen, but being able to measure and attribute the contribution of different marketing activities and what's ultimately driving the bottom line.
Yeah. All right.
At the end, the brand is what we are, so I don't see why I wouldn't put money in that. And everything we are is a success of brand. And the fact that we won today or yesterday evening, it means that the investment was worth it. So and the growth we had obviously in the last 2 years. So yes, it's the basics. There's no doubt every money spent there was with a good return on investment.
Okay.
I said earlier that it gives us license to operate. That's one point, but it's also good in financial sense to have a good brand. We launched a green bond in the beginning of the year, and we got really cheap money in, so it's good even in financial means.
Well, the challenge we're trying to kind of solve is so huge that we cannot do it alone, and we really think that cooperation is the only way to go. So to fulfill the mission, we are trying to find partners, so it's almost like dating. Between people. So you need to show who you are and what you think, what you believe in, and you need to really emphasize what's important for you to find the right partners. And I think we've had great success in that case, that we showed who we are, we were honest, and we were straight, and then that resonated with some companies, not all of them, but some companies, and I think that has been really beneficial for us. Measuring that effect, small company, don't have a lot of resources to put into measuring too many things, so you have to just initially just believe and see, have anecdotal evidence, for example.
Okay. I think these are good last words, and I don't know if you have, of course, you make up your own minds on what went on here, but what I take from it is that the brand is what it has to, what you convey out to the world has to reflect who you are, and you shouldn't be unafraid of who you are. And as you said, after all, the brand is you, so why shouldn't you promote it? And but you can read all about it in the reports out there. If you want to purchase them, you'll let us know. But I want to give a big, maybe if you can just stand up, all of us, and we'll give applause to those who were finalists and these people who won. So thank you.